The way you experience life, you don't experience life. You experience the life you focus on. And what you focus on is based on beliefs and values. Whatever you believe, you tend to see that. If I said to your audience right now, close your eyes, before I close your eyes, look around the room and see everything that's brown, everything behind you, around you, clothing, anything on the walls, books, anything. And then say, close your eyes and tell me everything you saw that was red. People usually smile. You say a lot more brown than red. And I have them open their eyes and look for red, and guess what? They find plenty of red. Well, you get what you look for. So our beliefs, our values, our rules that determine whether we experience heaven or hell inside, they're all internal. So it's like we can't control the external world, we can influence it. We have total control of this internal world, but most of us don't know how. So over those 6 days, people change their beliefs. I don't tell them what to believe. They discover what's limiting them. They shift their values to what's more consistent with where they are. And instead of being pulled apart, like, I want to make everybody happy and be honest simultaneously, I want to make $1 billion and sleep till noon, those create inner conflict. We help people resolve the inner conflicts, create a compelling future, and be in control of their own life. And you're right, a year later, they found 71% reduction in negative emotions, 52 improvement in positive emotions a year after doing this. So the long impact of this is what they're most impressed by.
Talk to me about what causes depression, because I know I talk a lot about in my own work when people ask, hey, I'm really struggling, what should I do? I actually would tell people cognitive behavioral therapy. If it's really stuck, then look at some of the research on psilocybin, which that's me grappling with what is that really deep neurochemical entrenched pathways that people can get into with depression. And I've always been hesitant to cheapen the cause of depression by saying, oh, you just have to think better, have better beliefs, all that. But when I saw the results of the Date with Destiny research, it made me think maybe I'm making the problem harder than it really is. Is it really that the entrenched depression is just the way that people think? Or is there something so real to trauma that it's sending you into a neurochemical cascade that you can't get out of in any simple way?
Well, rather than me answer that question, the head of the NIDHD, or however they pronounce it, for 22 years, I don't have it in front of me here. I wish I had it and give you the exact quote. Maybe I can give it to you. You can post it afterwards if you'd like. But he said, in 22 years, I spent whatever it was, $20 billion, did some of the most interesting studies in the world, and we didn't move one person out of depression. The bottom line is biochemistry is part of it, but it is related to what we focus on and what we feel. I can change your biochemistry in a heartbeat. Close your eyes and have you imagine one thing. I can disrupt you, produce fear. Close your eyes, produce something else. We can produce a parasympathetic effect, a calming effect. So you cannot separate the mind and the body. They're together. And so my approach is both. I think from going to events. I believe in physiology first, but it isn't just biochemical. It's the way you move. It's the way you breathe. It's the way you gesture. If I said to you, there's a depressed person behind curtain number 1 over here, and I'll give you a $100,000 donation to your favorite charity if you can describe their posture, everyone knows. What's their posture like? Where's their head?
Down.
Down. Where's the shoulders?
Slouched.
Are they breathing full or shallow?
Shallow.
That's right. Are they talking loud or quiet?
Soft.
Fast or slow?
Slow.
How do you know? Because we've all practiced this shit at some point and been depressed, right? But if you take that same person, I don't care what's going on with them, and you put their shoulders back, I know this sounds absurd, and you have them breathe different, and they speak at a different tempo, and they move, their biochemistry changes like that. So you got to shift the way the body's being used, but then also you have to create a compelling future. This is the way I look at it. I look at it as 5 to thrive. I'm going to give you a little picture in your head. Think of a triangle, the first base of 3 things. The base of how you use your body affects your depression or your excitement. If someone's depressed or they're excited, they use the body differently. They breathe differently, they move differently, they speak differently. So you can make a biochemical change just by changing the body radically enough in the way you move. Second is what you focus on determines what you feel. So if you're supposed to meet your husband or wife at 7 p.m. for dinner and you get there and they're not there, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, what do you feel? Well, some people go, I'm angry. Some people go, I'm worried. Well, it's only 7, Well, let's say it's 7:30 and they've not shown up, they've not called, they not text. Well, now some people go, I'm really worried. I'm really pissed off. It's 8:30 they haven't called. I'm full, a woman tells me, right? I didn't wait for the bastard. But my point is, whether you're angry or whether you're worried, those are biochemical effects, but they're all based on what you focused on. If you were really angry, like they did it again, they're probably screwing around with somebody else. If you imagine that in your mind, you're going to be upset. But if you were worried, you thought, what if they were in a car accident? You're going to get a very different biochemical effect. But people have habits of what they focus on. And those habits become your biochemical habits as well. And so they reinforce each other. It's not a one-way street. So that's why, I really believe exercise is one of the most important elements, pushing someone beyond their normal comfort zones physiologically, while you're simultaneously are working on their head, creating something. So you need strong physiology, you need a really clear focus, because you're only experiencing what you focus on. The human brain is a distortion, deletion, and generalization device. Your conscious mind can only handle so many things at once. You're not thinking about your clothing touching your skin, or the sound of your heartbeat till I mention it, or let's say the sound of in your ear of being able to hear that heartbeat. All those things I have to call your attention to, because your brain is deleting most of what's going on, so it's not overwhelmed consciously. So we pay attention to a small amount of things. So if you're really happy, you're deleting all the things that could piss you off or make you worried. If you're really worried, you're deleting all the things you could be grateful or happy about. So, and we tend to generalize our lives because we're cognitive misers. We don't want to think things through. So if you have strong physiology, strong focus, then the third piece is meaning is what creates emotion. Like if somebody says something and you go, they're disrespecting me, or they're challenging me, or they're coaching me, or they're loving me. Well, whichever word you select for those sensations in your body, your biochemistry becomes. And so, somebody might say, this happened to me because God's punishing me, or this happened to me because God's challenging me, or this problem's here because it's a gift from God, or someone else says it has nothing to do with God. It's the fact that I've been a lazy bastard, right? Whatever it is you do in your head, there is a biochemical effect. So there's the body, there's the focus, and there's language. Those three shape how you feel moment to moment. If you're excited right now, using your body, your focus, and your language in a different way than if you're pissed off, than if you're worried, etc. But then what makes you use these three once you understand them is you need what's called a compelling future. You need something that gets you to move forward. And I feel so bad for the generation today, Z generation millennials, because so many of them are now talking about not even having children because of the exaggeration of the problems. We've always had problems. I remember we were going to run out of oil, where the ozone was going to be destroyed in the 1970s, the cover of Time magazine. We've always had these challenges, and we've always learned to adapt to these challenges, whatever those challenges may be. But people today think these problems are forever because we've had some times here that we've never had, where we literally shut down the whole world and had people trapped in their homes. And that has an effect on people because they don't have a compelling future. So you have to develop a compelling future. And what allows you to do that finally is what's under this triangle. If there's a circle, think of a compelling future, and there's the power of identity. Identity is, who are you beyond the problem? There's something inside you that's bigger than anything that's ever happened to you, that ever could happen to you. And tapping in and finding that part of yourself is how you get someone to have sustained strength. So they have a reason to do it, a compelling future, something they're going for. And it's got to be a compelling future about more than just getting by. That's not compelling, or surviving, or doing okay. The secret to anyone who succeeded is they found something they care about more than themselves. Something that has meaning for them that they want to serve more than themselves. Because as human beings, if you get in your head, you're dead. Almost all of us can find something to be upset about. That's the nature of the mind. The mind is constantly dissecting things, separating, comparing. But when you look back and you take a look at somebody's life and you look at the totalitarian aspect of what am I here to serve? What am I here to give? What am I being called to for life? Those are the people that, were in concentration camps and survived. If you read Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, one of my favorite people on earth, right? His entire piece was they had a will to live because they had a compelling future. They said, I'm going to live so that I can tell this story so it'll never happen again. They suffered the most intense suffering, but they made it through it because they had a compelling future. So identity and compelling future are the ultimate things that shape people. And so what I do is I really help people discover those things, and I do it through immersion, because a little step at a time is like trying to learn a foreign language. Most people took a language in high school and college and they can't speak it. But, if I said, I want to learn Italian, and you had the money and time, and I dumped you in Rome and said, I'll see you in 90 days, 90 days from now with no teacher, you'll speak fluently because you're in it, speaking it, breathing it. That's how we learn best, not one word at a time, or cat, it's cat, it's cat, right? So I see that with my daughter. So the same things with humans. So I do total immersion training. And I've learned over the years that people want a great education, but they want to be entertained first. We're no longer an information society. because information, there's too much, right? We're drowning in information, we're starving for wisdom. So what I've learned how to do is how to capture people's attention who wouldn't sit for a 3-hour movie for 10, 11, 12 hours a day, now even at a distance, because we do all these programs now live and in person, but we also do hybrid where people all over the world are participating. And we're doing 12 hours a day and they're out of their mind, entertained, emotion, juice, everything they want. They're getting the best education, and while they're doing it, while they're there, I have them do the things that produce the change. So when they leave, they've already made change, they already have momentum. And that kind of E-cubing is what I call it, entertain them, educate them, and empower them. That process I've kind of refined over the last 45 years. I'm about to end my 46th year doing this. I started when I was 3, of course. If you're not doing it, you don't own it, you don't experience it. So the second step is enough repetition of what you understand with enough emotion. And we produce emotion using music and movement and everything else, and asking questions and having people remember and closed eye processes. Because, if I asked you, where were you on 9/11, almost everyone on earth can tell you, even if they're not American, where they were when they first heard about the towers coming down, who was around and what they saw. But if I asked you, where were you on 8/11, no one can tell you, unless they had something really special happen that day, because information without emotion is barely retained. So when you're telling your friends, that's not going to do squat. They're going to nod their head even if they understand or go, that's interesting. There isn't the emotional shift, because people only change in an altered state. Most people, think, hypnosis is something that people do to them. Most people are living in a hypnotized state. If you watch somebody, you're driving your car and then something catches your attention, you kind of focus on it for a while, and then all of a sudden you go, holy shit, who's been driving this car for the last 2 minutes, right? Well, you were in a trance. Or you go to a hotel and somebody pushes the elevator and it's already lit up and they push the button. If I could get $5 for every time this happened, right? They're just in a trance. They're just going through the automatic motions. For most people, about 48% of what they do, science says, every day is automated. So they're not really thinking clearly. They're not open to what's really possible. So what we're doing is we break that up by doing something with such immersion. And so then the third step is you do it physically, and then it gets in your body. So then it's like confidence is tying your shoes. Like, I can get up and do 12, 15,000, 50,000. These days we got 1 million people that did my last 5-day seminar. 1 million people, over 1 million people. Whoa. So it's like the size of the audience gets larger and larger and larger, and I've developed stronger and stronger skills to do it. But it's also getting it into people's bodies, because like tying your shoes, you've done it so many times, you don't have to think about it. It happens. Well, I've done so many versions of things for 45 years that, it's like when I go to have, a challenge somebody's facing, I got 50 answers and they're already in my body. I don't have to think it through and try to figure it out while I'm wasting their time. I can just deliver the result. But that's what it takes to master something. And so you need immersion. And so does it require hunger? Yes. But hunger can be awakened. Somebody can have no hunger, I have no interest, but then they see something that really excites them, or they go through a painful enough moment, or they get an environment where they see what's possible. And that's what happens in our environments. He had to learn that he had to be responsible for things. It wasn't so much respect, it was pure punishment reward. It's like real basic conditioning in the very beginning. Now, my son is a very smart kid. He's an adult now. He's completely transformed. This is 20 years ago. But he manages to get the owner of this facility to say, I've run this for 20 years. I've never seen a faster turnaround than your son. He's obviously your son. He was applying all these tools. He's helping other kids. He's being amazing. And so normally they stay there for a year, and he'd only been there 2 months. And of course, I missed him. His mother's crying. And so we brought him back. And within a month, he was doing drugs and stealing from us. So I put him back in the environment for a year. He lost 120 pounds. He's never gained it back. He developed a different set of value systems for himself. And Josh today, 25 years later, I have 2 grandchildren from him. He's my partner in several businesses we've taken from 0 to $4 billion, to give you an idea. And I couldn't be more close to him, but it was one of the more difficult times. So yes, sometimes you got to do an environmental change, because the environment they're in reinforces the behavior they're in, the beliefs they're in, the way they live that they're in. And that's not an easy thing to do. But so what you're talking about is an extreme. A lot of people do it with things like Outward Bound, right? It's a great piece. A lot of people take their kids who are, wasting away, and they put them in an environment where they're in nature and they can't survive without taking on the challenges and the people around them. And so that's another shaping device like that. So I'm a big believer in immersion, where someone has to grow, where it's not a should grow, it's a have to grow. There's no choice. Because, when I work with people, what I basically do, if you watch me, is I ask questions, I do different things, but I basically put the walls on the side and behind them, come in and in and in, and there's only one way forward, and magically they move that direction. That's my job, right? So I know how to do that in lots of different ways that don't require me taking somebody off for, a year and setting them aside. But I just want to point out that in some cases with drug use and things of that nature, your approach would be a very good approach. It's not necessary. You could take somebody for a few days aside and put them in a new environment and have them completely rewire how they are. Because remember, everything is conditioning. So the habits you have, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you perceive life is conditioning. Any condition pattern can be changed with new conditioning, and it doesn't take as long if you know what you're doing. They did research at UC Irvine years ago, and I don't support this research, but this is what they did. They take a monkey and they take down 4 of his fingers, and then they just bend his finger manually 10,000 times. So if you do this right now, if the people at home if they say, well, your finger, how'd you do that? They go, I don't know, I just thought it. Well, when they untape the monkey's finger, guess what? He does this for no good reason. It's conditioned. Imagine every time you bend the finger, you're putting a thread of connection between neurons, nerve cells in the brain. It's not fancy, just think of nerve cells. Do it again, 2 strings, 10,000 times, you're wired, right? Well, some people are going on the way to work every day and they get off on the same on-ramp, and one day they're on the phone and they don't need to go that off-ramp and they get off on it automatically, right? They're like a monkey, they've been trained. But what UC Irvine found is they could interrupt this pattern and they could create a new pattern, and it didn't take 10,000 bends to do it if they stimulated the pleasure center of the brain. If they stimulated the pleasure center while they bent the finger, they got like 100 strings of connection. So 24 of these produce what they used to get from 10,000. So I use that principle in what I do. That's why people enjoy it so much. It's not a pain-driven experience. It's a pleasure-driven experience. Because listen, your brain's going to avoid pain any way it can, and it's going to move towards pleasure. Well, if I can get you to link pleasure to what you need to do so it doesn't take willpower, because look, willpower never lasts. I got a lot of willpower. I know you do too, but there's a limit to willpower. There's no limit to when you link pleasure to something, how far your body, mind, and soul will push towards it. So it's really changing what you link pain and pleasure to that creates lasting change.